Welcome to Fiery Discourse, your podcast for media featuring dragonesses, female dinosaurs, and other similar saurians and scalies. I'm your host, Ludmillanon, and with me are my co-hosts, Angron, Mathmachine, Stryker, and LuckyEevee. Today is our 19th episode, and we're discussing the 2019 OKKO episode, Deep Space Vacation, so let's get things started.
Yep.
So OKKO, in my opinion, is definitely one of the more underrated of the Cartoon Network shows of the mid to late 2010s.
That's an understatement.
It really had a creative art style, and the character designs work out really nicely. It has almost a sketchy style that reminds me a little bit of Squiggle Vision. That's the style that Ed, Nettie, and Dr. Katz
does remind me of that a little bit. In fact, they actually referenced that in another episode where they sort of did a spoof of the Scooby-Doo Ghoul School.
Yeah, because then they show them in their Ghoul School designs, and Enid is drawn to look like, an old Hanna-Barbera drawing from like the 80s, and that is a again, in that episode too, they show up as the Eds, which is a fun little reference, but yeah, the show had a lot of crossovers with a lot of other properties. Of course, there was all the other Cartoon Network shows. There was Captain Planet, there was the aforementioned Scooby-Doo and the Ghoul School, there was Sonic the Hedgehog, and there was going to be a Mega Man one, but sadly, they pitched it, but apparently Capcom did not approve of it. We'll have to see. But yeah, the show really had a lot of fun with its stories. Like, there was one episode where a bunch of anthros took over, so they had to basically become anthropomorphic animals. Like,
the were-ants.
I remember that.
But here's the thing. They stayed in those forms forever. It's permanent. And the way they got around it is, I guess we'll have to wear these human suits for the rest of the series. It's stuff like that is really just shows how fun and how well made this show was.
Yeah, it was a lot more clever than it led on. I will admit that the animation is a little
off model. It does get a little hard to look at sometimes with how much it goes off model. I have that problem too with it. But overall,
I really have that big a problem
really great.
with it.
Yeah. I will say that it didn't bother me that much. And if any of you out there want to say it's CalArts BS, then I will kindly say
it is not. It is not. That's actually it's just a clever art style.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's the thing.
It's just an art style that is cost effective and more times than not can come across pretty interesting if you know how to present it.
Exactly. But yeah, this episode, Deep Space Vacation, it takes place in the third season of the show. And right at the bat, it starts off really good because the relationship between KO and Enid has always been really kind of heartwarming. And you get to see that in this episode, I feel, especially with the beginning. Now, one thing that is fun with OKKO is they use a lot of these stock cartoon sound effects mixed in with it. And you think that would get annoying, but yet it really doesn't. It actually feels like it's cohesive to the world. Like when, for example, a Hanna-Barbera show from the 1970s uses the same, slip and fall down noise. You were like, oh, not this again. But here it actually seems to work. Maybe because the world feels more fleshed out. Maybe because there's more care put into the story or animation. But it's something that really you do not notice unless, you're like us and are big animation fans who would notice these things. So yeah, basically what happens is Enid and KO want to go to Planet X for their annual feast for all the various space food. They ride in the space motorcycle, which is really just a cool concept right there.
Yeah,
honestly, it is.
Yeah, it's a really pretty cool concept. It honestly reminds me a little bit of the Veritech Cyclones from Robotech Invasion, and those are already cool in of themselves. Like, oh my gosh, they also remind me
intentional.
Yeah, they also remind me of the Duel Runners from Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, which is also very interesting.
Oh, that was one of my favorite series growing up.
Oh yeah, they were one of my favorite too. I finished it, and I'm not too 100% keen that they left it on a cliffhanger, but if you really want to go in and do like the subbed to like get more context, then you do you. But yeah, it was really fun, and the cycle has those two designs scream out to me in that regard.
Yeah. So yeah, like I said, basically the fun thing about OKKO is the stories are well done, but there's sometimes it's not the most important thing. What the show really does well, I feel, is the characters and the world building, because it feels like such a complete, basically, universe in the show. It feels like the entire show was planned out and properly plotted to where it feels alive. It feels like a place that you could visit. And that's one of the reasons why I think I enjoy it so much. So, getting back to the story, they go off to see Planet X, and of course, it's no longer there in an asteroid field. And this is where we are not introduced, but we get to see probably the most predominant role of our Dragoness of the episode, Cosma. Now, of course, she appears, and the music choice in this scene is almost seductive in a way. I have to wonder if that was intentional, because she makes these poses later on in the scene that seem like that's what they were going for. Now, Cosma, this is not her first appearance. Usually when we talk about a Dragoness or a character, we usually talk about their first appearance or one of the most notable. Now, Cosma first appeared in Season 1 in the episode Stop Attacking the Plaza, and she made several more appearances on and off, basically. She has more of a businesswoman vibe, and that makes her a fun character, and definitely one of the more memorable ones of the show.
Yeah.
She seems almost underused, because it feels like they could have really set her up to be like a big threat or like a main villain of the series, but sadly I cut short, so we will never know.
Yeah, that's pretty sad. It honestly reminds me of another character that I'm not going to name here until we get to like a certain other bit much later, but they have like this businesswoman sort of feel. Like they're ultimately underused. They have potential, but the times we do see this person, it's ultimately kind of like passive, and they're like and they're very memorable. They're very memorable in the best way possible. But
easily one of the more memorable parts of the show, especially with the design, because in this episode, she has more of a giantess look compared to her usual more slender form. And her voice actress here is interesting because it's a different voice actress than she usually has. Her usual one is the actress who played, I don't recall her name. She played Troy on Star Trek: The Next Generation, which shame we never got that crossover. We could have had.
She also played General Zera from. Yeah, she also played General Zera from the TMNT special Half Shell Heroes. She also played, I forget the cat's name, but I'm just gonna call her the cat from Infinity Train. So she is no stranger. She is no stranger to the Cartoon Network.
And she is usually a great voice actress, but for some reason, I don't know if it was scheduling or if it was like,
probably scheduling.
Scheduling, yeah. She doesn't voice Cosma in this episode. And yet the amazing thing is, I could never tell. I watched one of her earlier appearances compared to this, no difference whatsoever. Whoever this current voice actress for Cosma, she did a fantastic job. I could not tell the difference at all.
Honestly, there's a little bit of difference, but it's a little. You'd have to listen carefully in order to figure that out, which is very impressive.
Yeah, so Cosma basically has a really fantastic design, which is one of the reasons why we enjoy her so much and are going to enjoy talking about her. She was inspired by pulp science fiction, like basically the Lizardmen from Flash Gordon, but her main inspiration, getting back to the Star Trek, she was based a little bit on the Gorn from Star Trek, the original series, the lizard man that Kirk had to fight with in the episode with the brain aliens.
I get what you mean.
You can definitely tell that from the suit she wears, and especially with the boots and the combat boots. I can definitely tell that they based this off of really old pulp science fiction, and it's a really nice design for her.
She also reminds me a little bit of like those golden age like sci-fi supervillains like from Marvel or whatnot. Like could make the argument DC, but
Jack Kirby,
I feel that Jack Kirby. I could honestly say that it worked. That Marvel suits her style a little better because Cosma. Marvel's more cosmic. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I could see. If only she was in the MCU, then maybe this face would be worth watching sometimes. But here
exactly.
she is a lot more muscular and larger than usual, which she has a reason for explaining, which, I like they did. Her horns are longer than usual, and she isn't wearing her boots, and she has a notable, six-pack, and her snout is basically more jutted out. And I don't know, I really like this design. I feel like this would be how she looked if the show had a more traditional animation style. This is how she would have looked throughout basically the entire thing, because this design is phenomenal. You could tell that the animators had a lot of fun coming up with this basically ultra superior form for her. And the fact that, she is basically omnipotent and can do stuff like make herself a giantess and, it definitely makes her very, eat plants and that, which we will get to in a second. It makes her very popular in fan art, and she's probably one of the more popular dragonesses, which for someone that is really so recent, not as recent as like Sisu or Babe or anything, but she's still relatively recent. She has gotten a lot of love, and it's easy to see why.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. It's obvious to see why. Personality, design.
The superiority complex, of course, makes her a fun thing. And even the little touches, like things like her picking her fangs with a satellite, is just fun.
Yeah,
Gags.
There are a lot of them in this episode.
She owned that episode. I will say that much. Every little thing she does, it is pretty impressive, all things considered.
If we got only one episode to feature Cosma and basically have her as the main threat, I'm glad it was this one, because she steals the show easily. And I like the fact that her voice is distorted when she's larger. That's always a fun touch with Dragonesses, and the fact they did it here was good. And just the fact her movements just feel so fluid. Yeah, when she's teasing them around, by making all the poses and that, she is almost not at a different frame rate, but it feels like she's more of the focus in that shot, which is very interesting.
Yeah, very much so. A lot less so when she's like in her normal size, like for business purposes, but like for pleasure, you got right here.
Exactly. So getting back to the story, basically what happens is Cosma tells them that she ate the entire planet because she can do that.
Yep.
And
apparently,
because she's a foodie and that's what she does. And KO and Enid's reactions, which are completely horrified in that, she's so casual about it. And I think that's again part of what makes her a fun dragoness, is that a fun character as well. Is that she's just a villain. So she knows exactly. It. She's a villain. She owns it. That's what I am.
She knows.
Why should I change?
Yeah, I mean, she's basically Jack Horner, but the concept is honestly a little better, or a lot better. Not that this Jack Horner, but come on, compared to a cosmic dragon, no way.
She is great, and I really hope we do see more of her and other stuff in the future. Now, there is one part of the animation that looks off, and it's when it does these close-ups of KO and Enid's faces. They move from like corner to corner of the screen. I don't know why. They just look so off. Like that one scene, it feels like their faces are... I know, granted, the show goes off-model quite a lot. That is part of their charm, and I respect that. I just feel in this particular scene, it doesn't work. It just looks awkward to me. And maybe it's a problem with me. I don't know. But in my opinion, it just does not look very good. Not saying the rest of the episode's bad, but just something I noticed that was a little bit off. But regardless, it is still a lot of fun. And basically Cosma is genuinely threatening, despite the fact she does all kinds of cute little gags. One of my favorites probably being when she uses an asteroid as a bed, complete with like a blanket, a pillow, and like a little nightcap on. It's something that just it has no reason to actually happen within the confines of the story, but yet it is so cute, and really it's just a quick little gag that really, really works. It's like a 4-second, joke. It actually can turn out to be one of the funnier parts of the episode. So now, what happens in the story episode? Getting back to that, is that Ko and Enid basically try to find ways to get the planet out before she digests it, of course, because all their friends, well, not all their friends, but their friends are on there. So they find out these candy-like stars, which I swear to God is a reference to of all things, Hamtaro, because there was an episode of Hamtaro that had like the hams think that the stars looked like those kind of candies. I don't know if it was intentional, knowing who made the show and how much they, put a lot of things into Cartoon Network's past. I have a feeling that they probably might have taken a little inspiration for that, even though Hamtaro didn't really air on Cartoon Network over here. It aired another one. Anyway, getting back to this, Cosma quickly devours the stars in that, and probably the best gag of the episode to me happens right now. It's after, she eats them. Enid goes, "Oh, now will you give us back our friend?" And Cosma just looks at him and smiles. No. It's so simple.
Okay.
It's just
He has to be one of the best characters.
Just because of that, and
sarcasm.
Again, she's so petty too. That's also what makes her so fun. And another use of a classic cartoon sound effect is when she eats the stars. It's one of those classic whoop Hanna-Barbera noises. That was my impression of it, but you can definitely tell that the use of these sound effects were done for fun.
Yep. This entire episode honestly does feel like fun for the most part.
Exactly. And really, the entire show could be summed up with that. They did have some, slightly more serious episodes, but only slightly. I feel like the, light, jovial tone really, again, works out for it, especially compared to some of the other Cartoon Network fare. This feels like, I feel like this and Gumball are my favorites, just because they both have the similar kind of vibe to them.
I like Gumball I like Gumball more than KO, to be honest.
I do too. Gumball's amazing. That's my favorite of the 2010s.
I will not discredit KO where credit is 100% due. This show definitely went far, and it's very obvious with a lot of things. Like it's obvious with like Enid. It's obvious with what's another one? Like Boxman and like the robots and whatnot. It's obvious with freaking like down to the freaking name gags. Like for the longest time, I did not realize chip damage was like an actual term until I'm like, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah. See, that's always fun when they put stuff in cartoons that you don't realize what they are until you're older. That is always fun.
And it was very much obvious when it came down to Cosma.
Exactly. She definitely was one of those characters. And the part where they try to stop Cosma by flying around her again on the space motorbike.
The animation looks really impressive there.
And the picture of her there, it's not actually an animation cell. It's like a painting. Like, you know how they used to do on SpongeBob, for example? I think the most famous one is Squidward's, "Does this look unsure to you?" And then it cuts to like a horrifically detailed Squidward. Now. Cosma basically is done up in that kind of style where she's done with a lot more detail than, KO and Enid in that show, or really in general of the show. So it makes me wonder if this is like a painting of her, like not so much a painting, but like a drawing of her that they put the animation over for this sequence. But Cosma, of course, easily thwarts them, and she uses like a tennis racket to swat them away. It very much reminds me of
Mario Galaxy.
Yeah, exactly.
That was a fly swatter.
A fly swatter. Sorry. I thought it was a tennis racket, but
You're fine.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of stuff like Discord from My Little Pony Friends of His Magic would do, which I definitely could see a similar kind of style with her in this episode. Compared to actually how her usual self acts, I have to wonder if this was actually the intention for Cosma all along, and they wanted to keep it like her as a more serious, business-minded character, as kind of like a foreshadowing in a way or almost like a misdirection rather.
Yeah,
for this version of
her. It's like something like, say, the Beyonder from Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur. Like, something's up with this. Something's up with him, but like, you can't quite put what it is exactly.
Exactly that. But they try to attack her again by using a moon as a wrecking ball, but it barely hurts her. And yet, despite this, there was a great couple of reaction shots and faces in this sequence, and I am surprised the internet has not picked up on this and memed it to hell, because wow, some of them are really well done. They last a second, but you pause them and you look at them and you just start laughing.
Yeah,
I'll
bet.
Cosma basically ends up becoming really frustrated with them and just like swats them out of the sky like flies. And of course, Enid and KO drift away from the space bike into a black hole.
Yeah,
the thing that is interesting with this sequence, it's actually scientifically accurate. You actually would like spaghettify like that if you fell into a black hole.
I mean, to be fair, Treasure Planet did the same thing. Let's not beat around the bush.
Yeah, true.
On that front,
I'm just saying, for this kind of show to actually have something scientifically accurate about space like that, you would actually stretch out and like that if you fell into a black hole. So that's some good advice. If you ever take one thing from this show, it's this: don't fall into a black hole.
Yeah, don't fall into a black hole, buddy.
That's your warning tip for today. But yeah, Rad calls them from inside Cosma's stomach, and none of them are even aware that she ate them or ate the planet, which, honestly, that is a really funny gag that none of them even bothered to notice until Enid told them over the phone.
Yeah, it's like, bro, you are going to die. What the fuck are you doing? I'm like, bro, WT.
It basically was her reaction is basically a more G-rated version of that, but yeah. More of a child-friendly version.
Oh, absolutely.
And of course, her reaction to his indifference.
I thought it was too dark and moist.
Exactly. And again, it shows how well the timing is done with this show for a gag like that to work. And not only that, but Enid's reaction to it. It's very much classic cartoon rage of her, which I was probably, expecting, but not expecting the level that it would go to, because some of the faces she pulls off are really, really well done. So yeah, Cosma basically shrugs off all of the attempts of them to get it out of her, but then, of course, the residents of Planet X do it, and this is probably the one part that kind of doesn't work for me, because
honestly didn't 100% work when I watched it.
It feels... I don't know. I mean, I know it's a kid's show and you gotta appeal to kid humor, ha ha ha, and that, but it just really kind of drags it down. I'm sorry, how they get, the Planet X out of Cosma by, all belching at the same time. That is very, very juvenile in a way that the rest of the episode isn't. And granted, it is a kid's show, and yeah, you have to play to the audience and that, but I don't know. I feel like there was a more creative way you could have done it than just, we're almost running out of it. It felt like not padding, but it felt like rushing the episode over. It was like, oh, we got to finish the episode. We only have a minute and a half left. How do we do it? Okay, do you have an idea? Okay, good. Let's do that. It definitely feels like it was unnecessary for me.
Yeah.
And it's a shame because the rest of the episode otherwise is really, really well done. But actually, when I rewatched it a second time for this podcast, I actually just fast forwarded that part. I literally I fast forwarded through that because it is. I don't want to use the word cringe, but it does not fit. Let's do it that way. It is something that does not fit, whereas the rest of the episode does.
Yeah, it's just like they literally burped their way out of there, for crying out loud.
Yeah, it is again kind of. I mean, granted, it is a kid's show, but it is still a little bit too far for me.
It goes a little too. It goes a little.
Then we go back to a really funny gag where Cosma, after she manages to cough up the planet, that is really, really tiny enough to where she can fit in KO's hands, and then she just disappears back to her office or something.
Yeah.
And she looks really adorable there, and it's a cute little gag, and sadly, this would be the final speaking role for Cosma. She would only have a cameo in the... Yeah. She would, and there would only be one more appearance after this, which would be the finale, in which she appears in a still shot, in which she's back to her normal self, basically berating her workers and whatnot.
And also, there's a giant scene of her where like it's million billion, but then she like eats the planet like nothing ever happened.
Right. I see. But I feel like there was a missed opportunity to not have her slowly become the main villain. The way I feel you could have done her is like Mirage from the Aladdin TV series. You could have had her wind up being like one of the arch nemesis of them as a whole. And you could play off her both the businesswoman side and her more, shall we say, free-spirited side from this episode. I feel like there was a way you could have done it, but again, sadly, the show is canceled, so we did not get to see that. She did make a cameo in an episode of Villainous in a crowd shot with a bunch of other Cartoon Network characters, and I'm just glad to see her again in something.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. So basically, they save Planet X, and Enid is just so blasé about saving it and wanting to leave that it's kind of out of place compared to the beginning of the episode. I guess because all the things she went through, but it still feels a little bit jarring how she just, she was so excited about going to the planet, and then by the end of it, she just wants to get out. Granted, I understand.
You had to get your butt kicked by a giant space dragon goddess thing, and then get sucked into a black hole. You'd probably feel a little worn out too.
Yeah, and KO makes a really adorable face there, and then they go home back to Earth along with Rad, who didn't want to stay on Planet X any longer. And that's it for the episode. This is an 11-minute one, but it was a really, really fun one. Probably one of my favorites of Season 3, to be honest, or the entire show. Because, again, Cosma is a great character, and you don't really get to see her as much as this. And as I said earlier, she really was underused, and if they could have just used her a little bit more, just a tiny bit more, it would have been a perfect series. But yeah, what happened sadly is OKKO was canceled due to very low ratings, and the final episode was basically them just taking every single concept they had for an episode that they couldn't use because it was canceled and just cram it in there as like a special little thing. But they took literally every single idea they could not use on the show for like a season 4 and maybe even like a season 5. And it's a shame because this show really, really deserved better. I feel granted, it got 3 seasons. I mean, that's better than a lot of shows get. I mean, how many have been canceled after like 13 episodes, if that? So it did do better than some other shows. I still think it deserved a little bit more. I really do think they had so much potential to do more, to basically... it is good the way it is. Let's be honest, it is still a very good show. But when you realize what could have been with it as well, it really makes you think, That being said, OKKO is a very fun show, and this is a very, very fun episode, and I would very much recommend it to anyone who just wants a good time. It's a good 11-minute... it's a good way to basically kill 11 minutes and have a couple of good laughs during it, and of course, see a really, really phenomenal Dragoness.
Yeah. Yeah, I do honestly admit that Cosma is pretty underrated. Like
definitely.
Yeah. I will also say this: I really wanted to see a bunch of other collab ideas as well. I mean, I would have paid good money to see Capcom do a Mega Man crossover with OKKO. Hell, I probably could have helped. Crazy idea, but they probably could have done either a One Piece or a freaking One Punch Man crossover.
Oh, that would have been amazing.
That would have been awesome.
I would have loved to see that. That would have been so. Shame. I really feel like you could have done again with the crossovers. I feel like you could have done a lot with them, and sadly, of course, the show was canceled early, so we'll never get to see him. But I feel that, again, another good crossover for me, you talked about Capcom earlier, I think could have been Street Fighter.
I could have been great. I mean, crying out loud, KO is pretty much just freaking Ryu.
Exactly. And you can actually have, Ryu and Ken and, Chun-Li and that reacting to the weirdness of this world in, a different way. Like, why is the world like this? something like that. Like a fish out of water kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
Of course, since it's WB, they'd probably go more for Mortal Kombat, but that would take a lot of censoring to get a kid friendly. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, let's be fair. A lot of frickin' censoring. Like for crying out loud. Like, oh, man. I mean, hell. Let's be fair though. If Arthur could get away with censoring a bunch of like adult show references, like say South Park, Beavis and Butthead, whatnot.
Exactly. Yeah, okay, KO could have done that. You're right. You're absolutely right.
They could have done that, but honestly, I kind of want to see the Street Fighter one more than the Mortal Kombat one.
Yeah, same. So now it is time for the question of the episode, and this week's question is: what is your favorite Cartoon Network show? Now, I have a kind of unique answer because my favorite is going to be Courage the Cowardly Dog. Now, I love Ed, Ed, and Eddie. I laughed so hard as a kid. My parents had to check up on me because I was laughing so hard.
That's true.
I love Powerpuff Girls. Dexter's Lab. Basically anything before Ego Trip. Dexter's Lab is golden. But there's something about Courage the Cowardly Dog that is just really so phenomenal. It is a cartoon that is a one of a kind. It has such great. It has humor. It has really heartwarming moments. It is scary as hell. Some episodes,
absolutely.
Never forget the episode
Make
when
no mistake on that front.
Courage going to New York and he goes up the stairs. The first door he opens has a King Ghidorah behind it, which is cool. The second door has a shark. And the third one has like a girl playing a violin. She turns around and it's like some horrific demon face, which is like really freaked me out as a kid.
I think Ramses was for me the scariest bit.
Yeah. But it also has some really, really great humor. I think my favorite joke from Courage the Cowardly Dog has to be the one where they win a thing on a cruise ship and Eustace goes, blah, blah, blah. I'm not getting out of my chair. Cuts to the cruise ship. And then it cuts to Eustace still in his chair on the deck. And I was like, nope, I told him I'm not getting out of my chair. It's just something that's so simple. And yet it works so well. Apologies for my horrible impression. That probably sounded more like Popeye, but there you go. I know.
I ain't getting out of my chair. I mean, I could if I really had the effort for it, but unfortunately,
no,
I don't right now.
That's okay. But yeah, it really is such a well done show. And again, Courage is a fantastic character. His backstory is really tear jerking, and it too has an ending that really wraps up things perfectly, which, knowing from the episode that the last episode of Courage is a very appropriate word, shall we say. Yeah. And Dilworth has tried to revive it a couple of times. He made a CGI short in the late 2000s, early 2010s that had Wallace Shawn as Eustace. And it was pretty neat. And
it was pretty neat,
they had the Courage crossover, which is very terrible. I do not recommend. Dilworth had nothing to do with it. And they gave Eustace a rap number. I do not. I like Eustace.
That sounds amazing. What are you on about?
No, it's you think it's funny? It's not. It is not. I'm sorry. The concept, it could have worked, but no, not now. I feel like if they were going to do a Courage Scooby crossover, it should have been while the show was on in like the early 2000s. That it should have been Dilworth was working on it.
They really can't do it now, though, unfortunately.
Because no. Of course, Thea White, R.I.P. Muriel's voice actress passed away. Both of Eustace's voice actors have long passed away, and I think just Dilworth really isn't interested in doing it, which I don't blame him. A show's a show. Let it be over. Also, on another somewhat sad note, there really isn't a Cartoon Network in Spain. It closed down in 2013. But there's a free-to-air TV channel here called Boing that basically airs all the Cartoon Network shows. It is Cartoon Network, just with a lot more Doraemon. But it is basically the same thing, so we didn't really lose it that much.
Yeah. I actually went to Doraemon's hometown. Interesting fact.
Nice.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome, yeah. I definitely gotta go this one. That definitely was one of my favorite shows as a kid, but that does not count as a Cartoon Network show, so that's why I mentioned it. So, Angron, what would you have to say? What is your favorite Cartoon Network show?
Okay. So, before we get to that, here is a brief top 3 of my favorite Cartoon Network shows, because lordy do I have a lot of guilty pleasures and a lot of favorite shows, but I have nailed it down to a top 3. Thank fuck. Number 3, Samurai Jack. It ended nicely on Adult Swim kind of hampers it down a little bit, but I will say this: from beginning to end, it was amazing to watch. Number 2, Steven Universe. Unapologetically, future included.
That used to be
was
good
really
nice choice. Nice choices.
Yeah, and back up for this.
Okay.
Number 1. Codename Kids Next Door.
Oh yeah. That was a good show.
I
watched couple of seasons. Those were great. Wow.
Oh yeah.
This was made, on top of being the same person who made freaking Pepper Ann, for crying out loud, and also had a hand in the 7Ds. Interesting fact.
Yep, we'll talk about that another time.
Yep. It just represents everything about Cartoon Network. It's fun. It can be it can be emotionally painful. It has a lot going for it. It has such a vast variety that I honestly that you don't really get a whole lot of nowadays. Like, it had so much diversity in like the quote unquote genres and whatnot. And it honestly embodies the fully and unapologetically being a freaking kid. And it is, oh man, it is just fascinating.
Yeah, I have to agree with you 100%.
Yeah,
those are really great choices.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah, there were a lot of other shows that I could have easily considered. I mean, for crying out loud, I mean, Unikitty is in my top 10 for a good reason. It's one below Mega Man. It's one below freaking Craig of the Creek, for crying out loud. But come on,
wild card choice.
Nothing will ever top Codename Kids Next Door for me. It has such a balanced variety. I'm basically holding it in high regard. If it wasn't going to be Steven Universe, it was going to be Kids Next Door, hands down.
Absolutely.
Great choices. So, Mathmachine, what do you have to say is your favorite?
Ed, Edd n Eddy is really, really close, and it depends on my mood some days. But generally speaking, Samurai Jack is the top.
Number 3.
It is incredibly well animated. Every episode until the final season is a self-contained story, and they all just work wonderfully. It mixes in so many different action genres, and it just is a great series to just watch and have fun with because of how creative it is.
Absolutely, I agree.
Definitely. You can tell that
Tarkovsky is definitely up there as one of the best animators. Primal, Hotel Transylvania to an extent.
He's probably one of the best still in the business to this day. He probably is the guy keeping the torch for action cartoons and adult animation that isn't just, hey Lois, remember the time I went fishing? He probably was the only animator really keeping adult animation alive that aren't like animated sitcoms, and for that I have a huge amount of respect.
Okay, actually,
animators trying to keep old school animation alive.
That's true.
For canceling the Popeye movie, really appreciate that.
Yeah, for the Emoji movie too. Bravo.
Dear. But anyways, okay, actually, interesting take on that. I have not once, I have rarely heard that particular gag. There's a lot of gags on that show that get heckled to high heaven.
Yeah,
but they hardly ever existed in the show.
I know. I was just using that as a shorthand, basically, for it. I know they don't do that a lot.
But it's just something I couldn't help but bring up.
Yeah, that's all right. That's perfectly all right. So, Stryker, what would you have to say is your favorite Cartoon Network series?
Oh, hands down, Ed, Edd and Eddy.
I had a feeling.
It was my favorite since I first saw it as a kid, and it will always be my favorite. Actually,
Yeah, man.
I mean, a couple of others come close, like Billy and Mandy.
Billy and Mandy was great.
Hell yeah,
Billy and Mandy was awesome.
Oh, what else? Foster's.
I liked Foster's. There were a lot of good episodes in there, and honestly,
Yeah.
Oh man,
Foster's was kind of hit and miss. It could be good, but sometimes it could get kind of tedious. It was a show that was good, but it never was great for me. It was missing.
Yeah,
something.
it was missing a lot
something
of
that
things.
wasn't-
Let's be fair.
It was hit and miss for me, which is a shame because Craig's really great otherwise. But anyway,
I will say this about the show: the only thing I really didn't like, only episode I actively did not like in that show was Bendy.
Nobody likes that one. Nobody likes that
I was
one.
gonna say, no one likes Bendy.
Everybody, even Lauren Faust admitted she
put
hated
the
making that episode.
and torches down in the comment section. I'm talking about a yellow little fuzzy piece of work.
Yeah, but not Bendy and the Ink Machine. So don't get upset about that.
Mandible things and gets away with it.
It is one of probably the worst cartoon episodes ever made. I do not say that lightly. Don't watch it unless you want to get annoyed.
Much.
At least the catharsis was worth it, man. Because holy hell, did Bendy really get put through the ringer? You do not fuck around with Blue. You don't fuck around with Cartman. You don't mess with Jack. You don't mess around with Blue either.
No, exactly.
And then my second favorite Cartoon Network show.
Yep.
Chowder.
Oh man, I like Chowder.
I was a little old for Chowder when it premiered.
So it really shows. But I really enjoyed that, like the style that it had, like the characters.
No doubt.
I like that Mung was inspired by freaking the Wizard of Oz, or like the actor who did the Wizard of Oz in the original 1900 one.
I didn't know that. Nice.
Yeah, I mean you can kind of hear it in his voice. Let's be fair.
Huh? I'll have to rewatch it. Wow, that sounds awesome. Definitely have to rewatch it. I used to probably rewatch it when it aired on Boing early in the morning, but I didn't really catch it when it premiered. I was kind of I think it was a little too old for it when it first premiered, but I caught up with it and it is fun. You could tell that it really has a lot of great moments, and of course, C.H. Greenblatt is another great animator.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Definitely, 100%.
So it's like Harvey Beaks really show.
Yeah.
Also,
of course, Nickelodeon screwed that out, but
yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure freaking Jellystone also did the same thing.
I think they did.
I'm pretty sure he also did Jellystone.
He did.
Yeah, he was working on it.
Yeah, so we got freaking female Jabberjaw because of him.
Yeah. He really made a redemption arc for a lot of those old Hanna-Barbera characters, some of the more annoying ones. But we'll talk about that another time when we talk about Hanna-Barbera in a later episode. So, LuckyEevee, what would you have to say is was your favorite Cartoon Network show?
Ed, Edd and Eddy. We got two for Ed, Edd and Eddy, for the Ed boys.
Yep.
For Sean Simichael as freaking Rolf.
Oh, that's great, yo.
Oh, yes.
I love it.
Fun fact. Apparently, Rolf was actually inspired by Danny Antonucci himself.
Huh.
Nice.
Because he was the only kid on his street that was, that had different traditions.
Huh.
Nice.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is neat.
I think Rolf might also be an alien if one episode is to be believed, but who knows?
Yeah,
oh no, he's not. He's not. It's just
they were never that. Yeah, they had continuity, but they didn't have continuity. In other words,
yeah,
that's true. I mean, so there was, Gumball, let's be fair.
Exactly.
Well, yes, but actually no.
Yes, but actually no. Yes.
Classic.
Oh,
so
man.
Now it is time for the patent pending Dragoness Scale, and we are going to rank Cosma today. I will go first, and I am going to give her, and I won't give this lightly, only a few Dragonesses have gotten this so far. I think only 3 so far. but now there's going to be a fourth. I'm giving Cosma a perfect score, 10 out of 10.
Damn.
The look, the voice, the design, the characteristics, everything about her is so good. Now, it is a shame they couldn't get the original voice actress for this episode. It is kind of a shame, but disregarding that, she is, really a perfect character in every way. She is like a great dragoness. She's a great threat, and there is nobody like her there has been nobody like her before, and there probably sadly won't be any dragoness like her since. And it is because we've had, medieval dragonesses, we've had, all different kinds, but we've never had one like Cosma. And that is why she is a very fun character to me and to a lot of people. And you could definitely tell because she is probably one of the more popular characters of OKKO, despite only making a handful of appearances. I think she has less than 10 total in the entire series, and yet people love her for a reason. And who am I to deny it? I'm giving her a 10. So,
right. I am probably going to have to go a little lower, between like an 8 and a 9, because, let's be fair. Every time she's on screen, she's competent, she's capable, she actually she's actually one of the best Cartoon Network villains I have ever seen. Yeah. Even though she's more or less a minor character to an extent. However, the problem here is that she doesn't have enough screen time to really be fleshed out. She's like a passive thought come later episodes, and that's a little sad in my personal opinion. But this episode right here, this certainly definitely expanded upon her a lot, and I really appreciate them doing that.
She could have been a bigger villain than Boxman, actually.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, she actually is a bigger villain than Boxman.
Well,
physically as well.
Yeah, relatively speaking. She is quote unquote a big fish in a small pond. Let's be fair.
Exactly that.
But yeah, I think I'm gonna give her a pretty generous and honestly fairly deserving 9 out of 10. I wish more could have been done with her, but honestly, if that's the only problem I have with her, other than her being a passive side character, then I honestly think a 9 out of 10 works for her. She's not quite perfect, but she is damn impressive.
Fair enough. Very, very fair. So, Mathmachine, what would you give her?
I'm going to give her a 9 as well, largely because, they basically just do not use her near as much as they should in the series. But also because, and bear with me for this one for a little bit, she feels a little tonally different than the rest of the show. Her intelligence and competence and skill, while there are other villains in the show that do have those kind of things, she feels far and away superior to any of them. And it feels like she was a character made for a different show that got put in this. Not saying that's a bad thing, but you can absolutely tell that she seems a little off compared to every other character in the show. Plus, I've seen some other episodes with her, and it's another one, because of her powers and abilities, it does feel like another one of those, the writers are using their barely disguised fetish kind of thing.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
Oh, yeah, nothing
wrong with that.
Not as a jab, just saying, you can tell this character is a little off for the series in a couple ways.
In that regard.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. So, Stryker, what would you have to give her?
You know what? I think I might have to give her 9.5.
Okay, 9.5.
9.5. Damn.
She is top tier villainess, to be honest. But
let's be fair.
I feel like her potential was squandered in later episodes.
I blame Cartoon Network.
Honestly,
Me too.
I feel like she should have been the main villain after a couple of seasons.
After Shadowy Venomous.
That's what I said. She definitely could have been, a main threat, and still kept her, more freewheeling side from this. But yet they could have made her a really competent threat. And again, I like you guys said, I blame Cartoon Network entirely for this. I feel like if this show got 3, maybe 4 more seasons, we would have seen a lot more of her. A lot.
Absolutely.
Granted, what we
But it
saw of
feels
her,
like it was rushed after a while.
yeah,
That's
it definitely
true.
felt that, they were racing against the clock for a cancellation. But I definitely get your point. And LuckyEevee, what would you have to give her?
Well, I would have voted lower for her at the start of this, but after hearing everything, I'm going to vote her 8.
Nice.
Wow. Nice. I think, looking at the scores, that makes her probably one of the highest ranking Dragonesses on the scale so far. That is very impressive.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So, if you have any questions, or if you want to share some Star Trek Next Generation / Cosma crossover art, you can feel free to email us at fierydiscourse@outlook.com or visit us on Twitter at twitter.com/fierydiscourse. Next time, we'll be talking about the 2014 The 7D episode, Grim the Dragon. Until then, take care.
Yep. Peace, y'all.
Peace out.
Adios.
Peace out!
Later.